Hello, dear friends. This is BB Ukrainian Analytics, the channel of top news, analytics, and insights from Ukraine and about Ukraine. I am Olena Vostrova, a Ukrainian vlogger. This weekend, Bogdan, together with his band Yukis, are on the front line. They are playing for our soldiers, they are supporting them. And I continue informing you about the most important events that have happened to Ukraine this week. And in this video, I will tell you about a very significant dialogue that took place between Joe Biden and Volodymyr Zelensky as for our NATO perspectives. So you know how important it is for us to become a NATO member and get under the Euro-Atlantic nuclear umbrella. Because for us, this is the only way to save and protect our people from Russian occupiers and killers who want not only to occupy Ukraine territory, but also to kill Ukrainian population. So we are looking forward to the NATO Summit in Vilnius in a couple of days, and we are looking forward to the decisions that will bring us closer to our purpose, our NATO membership. We hear a lot about the NATO open door policy, but it feels like we have to fight for this door to get opened for us. And there are two most important factors that will actually make this door open for us. The first, that's our strategic defense operation, known as Ukrainian counteroffensive, which is actually a wrong term. The right term for what our army is really doing now is strategic defense operation. So a lot will depend on its success, and now our army is doing everything possible and everything impossible to free all our territories. And as our top general Valery Zaluzhny says, it's not a show the whole world is watching and betting on or anything. Every day, every meter is given by blood. And the second factor is corruption in our government institutions, especially those that are responsible for our security and defense. And an interesting dialogue between the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, and their administrations has been unfolding in the information space. And this dialogue reveals one of the most painful and serious problems of the Ukrainian society. And we must solve this problem right now, not after the war. And this is the unwillingness of the President Zelensky's office to do reforms, to root out corruption, and to meet standards. So here is the chronology of the most important messages in this dialogue. June 17, President Joe Biden said that US doesn't support a fast-tracked process for Ukraine to join NATO at the conclusion of the war. Ukraine would need to meet certain criteria for NATO membership, Biden said, raising concerns about corruption in the country. They've got to meet the same standards, so I'm not going to make it easier, Biden said. The main message here: do reforms, root out corruption, and meet standards, and welcome to NATO. June 29. Zelenskyy-Yermak's office sends an ultimatum through its chief diplomatic advisor Igor Zhovkva that Ukraine wants to receive an invitation at the Vilnius Summit to begin the process of joining NATO, and that President Zelensky will not attend if leaders do not show courage. And the next day, Zelenskyy-Yermak's office shows its very specific kind of courage. June 30. The Ukrainian government appoints Odias Olena Duma as the head of the Agency for Investigation and Management of Assets, with blessing from Zelenskyy-Yermak office. Despite the criticism from the active civil society and professionals, despite the fact that this odious person in 2019 participated in the Russian special operation to discredit Ukraine and Joe Biden himself. And after that, on July 3, Zelensky calls on Biden to invite Ukraine to NATO now, even if membership doesn't happen until after war. Great! On July 5, Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, said, "I'm not going to get into details. I'm not going to get into private conversations from here." And the president has said, he has said this over and over again, Ukraine would have to make reforms to meet the same standards as any NATO country before they join. He thinks that Ukraine can do that. Can Ukrainians do this? I think that we can, and we actually must. But can the President Zelensky's office do this? We have big questions here. The Ukrainian society wants and can do this, but the President's office makes systematic resistance and imitates reforms, which doesn't bring us closer to the standards at all. Instead of doing the homework, Zelensky's office play ping-pong. And on July 6, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sends to White House a message: reform your attitude towards the Russian Federation. So White House says, reform your institutions. Zelensky office says, reform your attitude towards Russia. Oleg Nikolenko, the press secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, says that we believe that one reform in the world remains incomplete. This is the West's attitude towards Russia's role in the Euro-Atlantic security architecture. And you know, it's true. But in the context of this dialogue about corruption, it looks like pointing fingers and sounds like, look at yourself and leave our corruption alone. We often hear from some of our experts the argument, which is not actually the argument, that NATO accepted even more corrupted countries, and so that's not a problem, let us corrupt, lie and drop. Believe me, this disgusting teenagers' bargains, instead of doing homework, irritates not only our Western partners, it irritates and frustrates Ukrainian society very much. NATO or corruption? Zelensky must choose, and the choice is obvious. NATO means nuclear umbrella and protection of lives of all Ukrainians. Corruption means that Russia will continue to shell, bomb and kill Ukrainians. What are these bargains about? Ukrainians' lives? All these Zelensky's office bargains create a very strong tension in our society. And to relieve this tension on July 6, Kyrylo Budanov, the chief of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, throws a message to the Ukrainian society that the results of the NATO Summit in Vilnius would disappoint Ukrainians. What do you think will disappoint us most of all? The course or the effect? The unwillingness of the President Zelensky's office to reform state institutions, or our partners' decisions? So on July 7, National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications John Kirby, in his interview to Voice of America, sends one and the same message again and again. Do reforms, root out corruption, and meet standards. He says that there should be a serious discussion between the country and the alliance. We want to respect this process. And here is one more message to Zelensky's office. Be serious. Respect the process. Truly speaking, I don't know how many times Zelenskyy-Yermak's office should hear this message that sounds, like a broken record. Do reforms, root out corruption, and meet standards. Do reforms, root out corruption, and meet standards. Do reforms, root out corruption, and meet standards. But we should continue pushing and pressing with this to make Zelensky do the home assignment. Recently, the Foreign Affairs magazine issued a long read titled Zelensky's Fight After the War: What Peace Will Mean for Ukraine's Democracy, where it is written that Zelensky will have to end the country's tendency to shape government around personal patronage networks, which are prone to corruption. He will also need to respect the rules and the spirit of the Ukrainian constitution. And I will add, first and foremost, Zelensky must respect the spirit of Ukrainian people, who pay very high price for our independence and democracy, and want to do reforms, root out corruption, meet standards, respect the process, and become a NATO member. That's all for today. Please write your comments and questions right under this video. Give us your like and subscribe for our channel. Here we tell you the truth about Ukraine and Ukrainians without censorship and propaganda. Here we give you insider information about what's really going on here in Ukraine. So, see you in the next videos.